It was interesting, the debate that went on in the first Clinton administration. There is no right to privacy in the Constitution. It's something we all talk about and assume, but in fact you can't find a strong legal basis for this. It needs to be articulated. We need a dimension that is free from the potential incursions of those who would manipulate us. The Constitution enshrines the right of a person, I believe, to be secure in one's home and possessions. But that's not a strong enough statement to nail down the right of privacy. This may be the single greatest right which everyone is being denied. Many other people are oppressed in other ways. But we are all denied the right of privacy. Interestingly, years ago, when I got divorced, at some point in these proceedings, you have to file some kind of a court document. I guess it's an intent or a declaration to divorce or something. Within 5 days, my mailbox was crowded with invitations to join singles groups. And it was very clear to me that people were going over these court records and getting the names of guys between ages 30 and 50 who were filing for divorce and hitting them before they got home from the courthouse with invitations. And it's insidious that we are accessible to this kind of manipulation and seen as victims. I mean, here's a tremendously private, personal tragedy, but for a whole segment of society, it's not a private, personal tragedy. It's a marketing opportunity. You have pain, we have answers. Yeah, somebody over here. Well, yes, I mean, for example, before drugs were an issue, if we take a subset of the population like white college students, this was without contest one of the most law-abiding subsets of the population. White college students are more law-abiding than white stockbrokers or almost any other segment of the population you can name. But if you turn cannabis into a Schedule I drug, a felony, suddenly all of these people who never felt inspired to dissent, never felt the heavy hand of the government, are automatically members of a criminal class. And what this does is both radicalize the people so persecuted, and in a feedback loop of paranoia, drive the government then into a frenzy of trying to penetrate, understand, and control this minority group. The idea that states of mind are matters for legal manipulation, it's amazing that discussion is even taking place in the democracy founded by Thomas Jefferson. How does it happen that American conservatism, which used to stand for the free market economy and a laissez-faire attitude toward life, becomes instead the purveyor of the most draconian and invasive approach to social management ever conceived of? And what I'm talking about is the piss test. The idea that any civilization would tolerate that level of invasion into the lives of its citizens, and that those who would advocate it would dare to call themselves conservatives. In the whole Marxist episode, nobody ever was asked to piss in a cup in the Soviet Union or Mao's China to establish their loyalty to the government or the corporation, and yet that went down here with barely a murmur. Yeah. Yes. Yes. for parents. Well, this is a society based on paranoia. I can remember in the 50s when we were being dinned with the evils of communism, they would tell you, finally they would reach for the most outlandish bummer they could imagine, and they said, in Russia, children are encouraged to report on their parents if they criticize the government. Well, my God, now in America, if children report on their parents and the parents are dragged away to prison, the mainstream straight people stand up and applaud. This is a wonderful example of the nuclear family functioning at its maximum best.
Program that's being...
Oh no, there are numerous examples of this. I don't know what to say about this. I don't have any. I despair of right-wing, left-wing political solutions. I think everybody is so corrupted by the agenda of capitalism that it's amazing that we have any rights at all left. And, thank God for Jefferson and thank God for the Constitution. Every time I go to England, it just gives me the absolute willies. I mean, these people have no constitution. If you get into some kind of complicated wrangle in England, the old boys club, guys in powdered wigs in locked rooms decide what happens to you and your fate. And England is not exactly Tajikistan. We tend to think of it as a source of democratic ideals. But in fact, in the absence of a written constitution, it's just what the establishment says. The law is what the establishment says it is. Yeah.
But what are you going to do about it? I mean, to convince the Heaven's Gate people that what they believe is bullshit.
Well, first of all, let me say I'm a member in good standing of the ACLU, and they saved my ass in Los Angeles. I don't really see the contradiction. We cannot abandon culture completely. One could. In other words, it's perfectly clear to me that because of psychedelics, if I started eating mushrooms and didn't stop, I would in a day or two have to move up onto the ridge and I would begin to browse on the local flora and in a week or so discard my clothes, and in a year or two my eyebrows would grow down along my face, and I would be like the monk on Cold Mountain. I could do that. You could do that. Once you find psychedelics, there's nothing that stands between you and a complete checkout from your cultural heritage. The only cost to you is the complete abandonment of everything you've ever known and loved. And if you can give that up, these monkish people, these fuzzy people, these people who hang out with dragons in the clouds, you could become one of them. Most spiritual seekers drive whatever spiritual vehicle they've rented with their foot on the gas pedal. Once you get to psychedelics, you begin asking, where is the brake? Because you have now the power to transform yourself. If the search was for power, you found it. Now, but you see, searching for answers is the position of an ingenue. It's the journey of the fool. What I assume all of you people have to grapple with in different degrees is the fact that by chance or design or good fortune, you have found the answer. Seeking is over with in this room. But what you have to do now is a much more demanding and grown-up thing. You have to face the answer. And you have to take the measure of yourself against the answer. You said you wanted to ascend into the dragon realms. You said you wanted these spiritual realities to become vivid for you. But now there's nothing between you and it except the decision to make it happen. And where do you come down on that? So when I push things like extra-environmentalism and critique of culture and all that, I mean it in a very wussed out sort of way. If I really meant it, I wouldn't be here saying it. I'd just let you all figure it out yourself, and I would go off and be a legend, and you could follow me into it if you wanted. I love things about the culture, but I define this loving of things about the culture as a kind of weakness. I'm not proud of the fact that the highest I can get is to teach at Esalen. I'm not at all proud of the fact that that seems to be where I top out. Had I greater courage, I would go further. But I don't. So I'm hoping that you people, my graduate students, as it were, will sacrifice yourselves on the pyre of going further and report back. The thing is a paradox, and you either live with the paradox, I think, and that contains a certain amount of hypocrisy, and hypocrisy was a word we used earlier, or you become so individuated that from the point of view of everybody else, you're mad. And I've been that, too. And it's very hard to do it and remain in society. I don't think I could have done it. My episodes of madness occurred, thank God, 700 miles up a jungle river in Baboon Asholia. But had it happened in Manhattan or something like that, it would have quickly set up ripples that would have inextricably complicated and made my life much more difficult.
Well, what do you think? I read a quote once from Oscar Wilde saying that your first duty in life is to be as artificial as possible.
Duty in life is to be as artificial as possible.
And sometimes I deal with this paradox. I always go back to that quote. I don't know what that means.
I know, it's an interesting quote. It meant something to him completely different than what it must mean to us.
And I always kind of refer to that whenever I feel like I'm a hypocrite, with this.
Well, I'll tell you a little boring little secret about how I got to be who I am. I grew up in a town in western Colorado where if you read Time magazine, you were suspect of being some kind of left-wing intellectual. I mean, this was podunk. And as I grew up there, I became aware of all these extremely strongly expressed cultural values. And most of them were hostile to something. Either Jews were bad, or black people are bad, or people who didn't work were bad, or people who made messy paintings were bad. All of these things were bad. And one day it occurred to me, I will take the position that all these things are good. These things are good. Abstract expressionism, Jews, black people, science, good, 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 good. And everybody said, there's something wrong with this kid. And I didn't understand my own position. I mean, I would look at a Pollock and think, it is messy. It may be horseshit. But we must never admit that. We must defend that. We must defend the genius of Pollock unto death because we don't understand it. And by taking that position, slowly I actually did understand some of these things and make them my own. And I discovered that that was the path to wisdom, a total rejection of of the culture I came up with. Well, now I don't know how that would work if you were born of Jewish parents in New York who were members of the Communist Party and always took you to wonderful art exhibitions and made sure you got to Carnegie. If you rejected all that, you'd become a jerk like the people around me in that small Colorado town. So this is not a fail-safe prescription. But in my case, by an embracing of everything artificial and antithetical and opposed by and sneered at by the people around me, I made my way to, real depth, real worth, real culture. Things, not that I assimilated these things, but at least I came to live in the light of them. It's a great puzzle. I mean, all of you who have children, and I have two, know that we are alienated intellectuals. I mean, broadly speaking, this is what we are. We are alienated intellectuals, and so we bitch about the government and we critique the monetary system and so forth and so on. Well, then you see your children on the brink of reason, and you say, geez, my alienation has brought me alienation. But I can't let the kids grow up to be marks, to be pawns of the market economy and the propaganda machine, people scratching their heads trying to figure out whether they're Republicans or Democrats. I can't put that on my children. And so then you say, well, okay, then they must join in the alienation. They must be taken out of the culture as we were taken out of the culture. And this is a momentous decision because this act of separating from the culture is unambiguously alienating. And yet it seems to be the only way to find the self. Otherwise, you never contact the self. You contact a commodified cartoon of the self that finds meaning in outboard motors and basketball and all this other crap that's peddled as reality.